Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Deirdre Pike, and I'm a senior social planner with the Social Planning and Research Council of Hamilton and a member of Hamilton's Basic Income Network. Welcome today to our forum for basic income. Before we get into that, I'd like to welcome our co-chair, Lisa Alfano, who will begin with a land acknowledgement. Lisa.
Thank you, Deirdre. Before we begin this important conversation, it is essential to ground it in the acknowledgement that from wherever we are joining this meeting today, for those of us who are non-Indigenous, we are settlers and we are guests on this land. The city in which I stand today is situated upon the ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. It is also an area with long-standing relationships with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Six Nations of the Grand River. Almost all of us are somewhere on Turtle Island today. If you know the traditional name of the territory in which you are seated, please say it now, aloud, or in the silence of your heart. We are grateful to the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island who have cared for these lands since time immemorial. We hold our hands up to their amazing resistance, resilience, and strength in the face of ongoing dispossession and colonial violence. To acknowledge these lands is to take one step in demonstrating our commitment to beginning the process of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. May we bring that same commitment and spirit of truth-seeking and reconciliation to our conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. It's a very important way to begin our meeting and grounding this very important conversation, which I'm so pleased to say is indeed a national conversation as we bring together people from the pilot sites of the Ontario Basic Income Pilot, from Thunder Bay to Lindsay and here in Hamilton, as well as Chamber of Commerce members from Hamilton, Thunder Bay, and also a senior economist from the Scotiabank. But all of the information on our speakers, so that we can save time for the really important conversation, their biographies will be found in the chat room. So I encourage you to take a look there. And I also would ask you during this time to start posting your questions as they arise so that we can curate those and have a really meaningful conversation throughout and again at the end. And so we have some very knowledgeable panelists, and I know that you'll want to tap into that today. Now, we're going to start today with, I think, the way that things need to be started, and that's grounded in the lived experience of the issue that one is addressing. And today, as we talk about small business and a case for basic income, presented, I should say, by the Hamilton Basic Income Network, we do so by having Louis Segura. He is a business owner with his family of Fresh Fuel up in Lindsay, Ontario. And he has escaped the busy lunch counter. He'll be the only one here probably in overalls or his work attire. Like that anyway, an apron, I should say. And but anyway, you'll enjoy his input and conversation, and we're going to hear from him right off the top. So welcome, Louis. I need to add a little, just a little note here that we had a bit of trouble with the beginning of Louis's recording. So although it starts off a little sharply in the middle of a sentence, you have not missed much, and you will hear the full impact in his remarks, which were very powerful. So thanks again for tuning in.
Here mentioned the basic income pilot and suggested that we apply and to take part in it. And it's something that intrigued me. And at the same time, I kind of felt a bit of a hesitance, just, again, being an immigrant. My parents have always been hardworking, and we always felt that stigma of if you were ever on any social assistance, welfare, anything like that, it's like kind of frowned upon, and there's that stigma to it. So I was hesitant. But we applied. So we went through the entire application process, and we were approved. We got it. So we were receiving around $800 a month additional through basic income, which was a huge blessing for us at the time, because it allowed us to allocate that to the home and be able to fast track our business and really invest into the business and get that going. So, I mean, for me, like I said, the one big thing that I hesitated on was that the stigma of it that's attached to that. And my wife as well, but she said to me, well, you've been paying your taxes, like you've been hardworking, like if you have access to it and you're available to get it, then we'll take it and we'll get it and we'll use it to, alleviate the financial stresses of the home and fast track the business. And that's what we did. And so we started to just really invest into our business. We got a food truck, which we were then able to take to local events. So we went out and we bought this beat up trailer that my father-in-law and I, and my father, we built back up, and we built it so that we could take fresh fuel on the road. And we did a bunch of events, and that was great. And through this, the biggest thing that I noticed during basic income was the amount of people that were now coming in to our store that perhaps weren't coming in before, because now they had a bit of disposable income that they could treat their families and treat their kids and treat themselves to, a healthy meal. And sadly, eating healthy is more expensive than eating unhealthy. So that was the big thing that I noticed, in our community. I could see a lot more people feeling good about themselves and feeling great that they were able to, treat themselves, like I said, and it just makes sense. Things like this come in and it starts to circulate in the local economy, makes everybody feel good. For us, I was able to, take my kids to, they had like after school programs or things like that, that, we were kind of tight on before, and we were able to, like, let's do, the 1 day, 2 day gymnastics for the little one or things like that. So it's more than, I feel it's more than a financial lift, as much as also it's an emotional lift, because, you get people to feel like people. You allow people to feel like, they can be their role, as a father, as a husband. It gives you that hope, that motivation. So those were some of the things that I noticed during the basic income pilot here in Lindsay. And then when it was cut, you could sense it here, like it was a kind of like just a silence, like just kind of like, damn, like really, like did they cut it? And we didn't feel discouraged, because we're very how can I put it, like our motto was just, we're always going to find a way. And we said to ourselves, well, we started the business before basic income, so we've been doing it, and we're just going to find a way to keep going and keep doing this. So we basically got ourselves together and just kept pushing. Locally here, there's been a lot of reconstruction on our main street, which is a street that we were on. So we were coming up on our 5 years, and we felt the need to grow, to be able to, just bring more income in. And we found a standalone location. So now we've actually moved from downtown, and we have a standalone building, which I'm in the storage room right now. I'm not able to be out on the floor. We're in the middle of a lunch rush, so it's quite busy, which we're extremely grateful for. And we've actually added a coffee business to our location. So now we're Fresh Fuel and Northward Coffee Co. So that tells you anything about the hope and the potential that basic income can give someone, is that I feel that the amount of dreams, the amount of ambition that is perhaps being halted because people don't have that extra boost or that support system, who knows how many businesses and business ideas and great ideas are out there for our small communities that aren't being explored because people are too scared and don't have that safety net, or that family support to be able to do things. So that's our story. That's Fresh Fuel. That's the Seguras. Like I said, we were adamant on basic income or no basic income. We were going to find a way, but we acknowledge that we're blessed and fortunate enough to have a strong family unit. Both our set of parents live in town. They help us with the kids, and we have that support. But I do know that there's other people in the community that don't have that and are in worse scenarios than myself. And I know how much basic income meant to them and how much it really hurt them when it was taken. And like I said, it's more than, to me, this is more than a financial boost as much as it's an emotional boost for our communities. I mean, if the communities feel good, if communities feel great, then the atmosphere and the environment in it is great. And, we can be in better positions, better situations. That's all I've got to say for now.
Thank you so much. Thanks for making time. I'm clearly on a busy lunch hour. Love the unit. And you're probably the only one on the webinar with the overalls going on as an apron. Yeah, that's right. Because I know you're going to get back to the counter or wherever you hang out. I just was encouraging people in case there was a question that anyone wanted to ask. This would be a good time to ask Louis. And one that I had someone ask me in advance was whether or not, the pilot ended about a year in, of course, for most participants, for you, I think, in terms of the time you were on it. Were you already finding enough success in your business that you were preparing to not live out the full 3 years? Yeah,
absolutely.
Could you just clarify that? I missed that if you said it, sorry.
Yes, no, we absolutely were. And again, I think I credit that to the fact that basic, like I said, the amount of more customers that we were starting to see because more people had disposable income to circulate. Do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it helped, it boosted our business big time. And yeah, we were, like I said, that's, once it was canceled, we knew that next tax season, we were probably not going to be eligible for it. So.
Sure. But even as a business succeeds or as people succeed, they transition off it.
Exactly.
And you were in that trajectory. It sounds like for sure. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. I see a couple of comments in the chat room. Certainly, people are inspired by your story.
Thank you.
And I again want to thank you for taking time today. And if there are other questions that arise, we'll find you to find out the answer. Perfect. But I wish you the best of luck as you continue so there in Lindsay. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. My love to Hamilton.
Cheers.
Hope to see you guys. Cheers.
Come and see us again soon.
I will.
It looks like this behind me, Louis.
It looks beautiful out there. Yeah. Better than my background.
All right. Beautiful.
See you later.
Thanks. Louis has followed up today. We're moving from this very hands-on experience of a small business owner to a senior policy economist in Scotiabank. His name is Brett House. And again, you'll be able to see more about his extensive bio. You can find him on Twitter like I did this morning. It's Brett E. House if you want to learn more. But he is here today to tell us more about the case for basic income from a business perspective in that larger economic policy and national place. Thanks, Brett, for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It is a real delight to follow Luis because I think the best case for basic income is always told by the stories of people who have been part of pilot projects and have seen the real impact that it can have on their lives. I'm going to tell a story that's a little more abstract in some ways, in big numbers about the economy, where it is right now, where it's going, and make a Bay Street case for basic income, both for large business and for small business. I do want to underscore these are personal views. I'm not speaking for Scotiabank here, but these views are informed by the work that I do every day monitoring the Canadian, North American, and global economies. I think one thing to underscore right at the outset is that this recession that we're facing right now as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and restrictions in order to try to control its contagion has been distinctly different from past downturns in the economy. And so that creates some arguments for basic income that are related to the effort to get out of the challenges we faced over the last few months and year. And I'm also going to link those arguments to some longer term developments in the economy that underscore further the case for a basic income or something like it to support low income households in the Canadian economy. I should say, I start from a personal view that I think most Canadians share, that citizenship should mean more than just a passport. It should mean more than just rights that free us from oppression or allow our expression, but it should carry some notion of economic rights too. Canadian citizenship should be consistent with the notion of basic well-being and a basic capacity to participate in the economic life that exists here in Canada. Right now, that's been threatened for a big slice of the Canadian society by the COVID-19 restrictions, which have hit small business harder than almost any other sector of the economy, have hit service sector businesses where physical distancing is difficult, particularly harshly in the hospitality, tourism, culture, and entertainment sectors, where we still see employment down by about 40% compared to the pre-pandemic period, where women have been disproportionately hit by job losses, and where the distribution of activity and employment losses particularly has hit low-income or minimum wage workers. So there is a targeted need right now to ensure that we are providing support to households that rely on employment in those areas and that are in the main lower income than the average. Some people have talked about the K-shaped recovery that's emerging from the downturn and the restrictions that we saw last year. That speaks to the notion that high income households where white collar workers are able to work remotely are doing really pretty well. In fact, in a lot of sectors dominated by high income jobs, we've seen employment numbers increase since the onset of the pandemic, and overall activity has gone up. But in those service sectors I noted earlier, which are dominated by low income jobs, we've seen unemployment go way up and stay way up, and the recovery has been much slower. So there is a targeted need right now to ensure that we are getting income into the pockets of people that are most deeply affected by the developments we've seen over the last few months. What we also see are some longer term trends where technological changes are eliminating jobs in those sectors or changing them. We've also seen for about 30 years, trade and capital market liberalization increase competition for people in those sectors with the rest of the world. And when we open the Canadian market up to increase free trade with the United States, with Mexico, with Europe, and with Asia, we made a commitment as a society to ensure that people would be able to transition out of jobs that might be threatened by increased international competition and into other areas where Canada has comparative advantages. Basic income can be an incredibly effective way of supporting that transition, particularly because we haven't particularly made good on the promises that were made for job retraining, regional relocation support, and other measures to ease that transition. So there's both a set of short-term challenges and long-term macro challenges that need to be addressed. And what we've seen during the brief experiment with the emergency support that the federal government is providing, which is in many ways akin to a basic income pilot, we've seen a huge boost in the number of Canadians who have been put out of work, investing in job retraining, skills upgrading, courses, and refreshers that could allow them to move on to higher wage jobs, to open businesses, and become engaged in ensuring that they raise their income well above what those basic emergency supports are providing. There's a particular case for small business to support basic income, because consumption in our economy accounts for about 60% of all economic activity. And a lot of that consumption happens with small business. And right now, if we want to ensure that small businesses are able to open back better than they were previously, ensuring that the people in the communities that are the main clients of those small businesses have income in their pockets is going to be essential. We also need to ensure that it is accompanied by, other progressive policy changes, like the measures that have been mooted by the Federal Department of Finance to shift the way that we file taxes, so that everyone gets their tax return prepared first by the federal government, and then we can propose changes if it doesn't accurately reflect how things have gone for us over the past year. That's how tax returns are done in much of the rest of the world, including almost every country in Europe. And given that a number of benefits that complement basic income and that are specifically targeted to people with specific needs happen through the tax system, either through credits or deductions, that is an important accompaniment to a basic income system being put into place. Another thing that's important to remember is that our tax system, does, as a result of those credits and deductions and other supports, ensure a much more equal outcome for income after taxes than before taxes. And a basic income can ensure that that system works even better than it does right now. And to the extent that it works better, it means putting more money and more demand into the communities where Canadian businesses, small businesses in particular, operate. And it also has a circular effect where many of those jobs I mentioned in sectors that have trouble physical distancing or aren't set up to physical distance at all are at small businesses. And so by providing a basic income, it can not only improve the health of small businesses, but get back to work a substantial number of those people I mentioned who have been on long-term unemployment now for almost a year as a result of COVID-19 restrictions, and face those much longer-term challenges around trade and technological change. One other thought, there has been a lot of discussion around minimum wage increases over the last few years, where they've been boosted in several provinces. One of the interesting things we saw is that minimum wage increases didn't, in the main, cause employment losses, but did increase employment for individuals, and most of the costs of those increased minimum wages were passed on to consumers. They didn't cause a big boost in inflation. In fact, right now with inflation in short supply, we'd like to see a little more than we have so far. But in the main, small businesses were able to pass minimum wage increases on to the people who buy their products and services. Basic income offers an alternative to that, where the burden for ensuring that people have a living income gets moved to the entirety of society and away from small business payrolls. And to that extent, it means socializing that basic notion of Canadian citizenship and taking some of the burden off small business specifically. And to that extent, I think it is a more equitable way to make sure everyone in Canada participates in our economy and is able to achieve and pursue the objectives that they have for themselves, with that floor underneath them that mitigates risk in the decisions they make every day. I'm going to wrap up there, but I want to underscore again that the ideas I'm reflecting here are detailed in to a greater extent by almost all of the Bay Street economics departments, large think tanks, and others, in terms of their assessment of where the Canadian economy stands right now, what the big challenges are in a macro sense and at the individual business level. Their prescriptions on how to respond to it differ, and I want to put myself firmly on the side of supporting discussions around introducing a basic income more broadly in Canada.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks for being very clear on that side. And your contribution is great. And I'm sure that there will be some opportunities to engage with Brett, who is staying till the end. So please, again, put your questions in the chat or hold them for our live question and answer at the end of this. So thank you again. Now, next, I'd like to introduce Floyd Marinescu. He is no stranger to any of these basic income webinars and has been in Hamilton a few times presenting, so I'm sure that many of the participants have met him before as one of the founders of UBI Works, which is started as a number of over 100 CEOs who got on board with basic income back in 2017 or so, 2018, as the pilot was launching, I think. But Floyd's going to tell you more about that. And as usual, check the chat room to learn more about his bio. Thanks so much for being with us again, Floyd.
Thank you very much. So I myself am also a business owner of a mid-sized business that we ran for 15 years. And one of the first things UBI Works did, a nonprofit that I founded to promote basic income, is organize 120 Canadian CEOs who endorsed basic income in 2018. And when I'd asked them why they're endorsing basic income, their positions were varied. About a quarter of them were upset that we're living in a society where increasingly access to entrepreneurship, to starting a business, is only possible for children of wealthy Canadians, and that's common across all Western countries. In fact, that was confirmed on Wednesday with a new report released by Statistics Canada looking at income mobility that confirmed that looking at the last 50 years, different cohorts of Canadians have been finding it increasingly difficult to escape the income levels that their parents had. It's getting worse and worse. And for me personally, a basic income is what helped me, in a sense, to start my business. Another quarter of the CEOs were saying that they had some sort of income support, whether it was an entrepreneurship grant or falling back on employment insurance. For me, I was very financially paranoid, having grown in a working class family where money was often scarce. And I bought a small income property with my life savings, and the rental income gave me a basic income, and it gave me the confidence to quit a job and start the business that I'm in. Many small business owners themselves are low-income workers. That's an important point. So basic income is for them as much as it is for their own customers. But the bigger problems that I see us being faced, that I could color some of the things Brett said, I think could loosely be described as aspects of what's called the fourth industrial revolution. In the fourth industrial revolution, we're seeing technological change disrupt the labor market faster than the speed of light. And one of the biggest impacts of that is polarization of wages and job opportunities. Polarization, meaning the middle is shrinking and the edges, the poles are getting bigger. We're creating more lower income, lower quality jobs, while the middle shrinks, more higher income jobs. But the point is, a good economy should be moving people up the middle and not expanding at the bottom where people have no way out. We're seeing that we've had more business closing than openings historically. That is actually interestingly slightly reversed in the last few months, perhaps because of CERB and CRB. More people have time and the means to think about business. We've seen a slight uptick in growth in small business and applications for business. Also in Japan, there was a basic income pilot recently where they saw a huge increase in interest in starting businesses because people had the financial security to do that. But back to the fourth industrial revolution, this pandemic has exposed this phenomenon of polarization very clearly. You could say 2020 might have been the death of small business. More mom and pop shops are closed while people can go and shop at big box retailers. These acceleration of forces that Brett had mentioned is hurting the bottom line of businesses, as well as the ability of people to enter into small business. And another study showed that 4 out of 10 business closures could remain permanent as the economy has fundamentally shifted to a more automated economy, delivered more online by companies like Sobeys, for instance, or Walmart or Amazon that have increasing automation in their warehouses. So this polarization is hurting us. It's hurting us as a society. And more education is not necessarily the only answer. Canada is already the most educated country in the OECD, and also the #1 country in terms of educated people living in poverty. So where do we go from here? How do we turn this around? Well, it's important to understand that one of the impacts of technological disruption, since we're creating more lower income jobs, is that high educated people are also taking lower income jobs, which is pushing lower people with high school educations often out of the job market or into destitution. These trends are moving fast, and I don't see any policy, anything at all, any politicians are talking about that could actually turn it around or even better harness these trends for the betterment of everyone. That's why we see basic income at UBI Works as not support for lower income households. It's not charity. It is giving people a share in an increasingly automated economy, a way to ensure that as technology moves us forward, we all benefit. Because productivity and economic growth are no longer driving real wage growth for most of us. So the answer must be to reconnect progress to the real lived experience of everyday people, including small business owners and their customers. We need to ensure that all Canadians are beneficiaries of advances in technology and economic growth, and that's what a basic income does. So what will that cause? It'll enhance our economy's ability to grow. It'll capitalize the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, help working people make better long-term decisions like retrain and relocate to where the jobs are. We see basic income as an innovation and a productivity policy, because when people can make better long-term decisions, everyone benefits. You find people in jobs where they like, where they're better paid, and that productivity enhances the wealth and living standards for all of us. Economic growth, wealth creation is driven by risk-taking, and that requires income security. That's why the observation of my fellow CEOs who signed that letter is so important, that it should not only be the domain of children of wealthy parents. It requires risk-taking, and as more and more of the country is pushed into living check to check, more than half the country, risk-taking is at an all-time low. And I don't think we have a lot to look forward to, frankly, even with this next recovery, because look at the last recovery. After the longest recovery, longest growth in the history of capitalism, more and more people are living in check to check. More and more people are losing in purchasing power. So what do we have to look forward to with this next recovery, unless we implement something like a basic income, so we could raise up the bottom in a trickle-up manner and have a more prosperous economy for everyone? And it turns out that not only will it create more entrepreneurs, it'll also create more jobs. As a recent study from the Canadian Centre of Economics Analysis that UBI Works commissioned show that basic income could grow the economy by $80 billion a year. That's as much as the combined pre-COVID tourism and hospitality industries combined. It could create 600,000 jobs. And in doing so, we would see an economy that is better for everyone. This way, I think that the stats are in. An economy without a basic income will be smaller, have less jobs, and less innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Floyd. There's questions coming up in the chat room. If you have questions for Floyd, please put them there. We are very happy. I am very happy to see Jesse Golem's shining face here. Jesse has joined us. I'm sure that you have heard of Jesse and the humans of basic income. And Jesse is here today to show us, again, using art as a tool for social change, how indeed people who were in business and basic income got their message out during this project at the cancellation of the basic income, but now being used around the world to advocate still for basic income. Jesse, thanks for getting in here today, leading one very important meeting to another. We appreciate it very much. Please share with us.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. It's so great to see you. It's so great to see all of you here, Floyd, Craig, Brett, everybody on the panel. It's so good to see you. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like, I popped in from another meeting and I'm popping in here and I'm probably gonna pop out after that, I'm not sure. But just a quick story, like I really resound with business and the case for basic income for business, because I'm sure like everybody has said this up to this point, like just seeing like the impact positively on the economy and the environment. And then also just my own personal experience was that when I was on the Ontario basic income pilot, I was using that money that I was receiving in basic income to build a business. And I was focusing entirely on working as a photographer and building that business full time. And I hadn't been able to do that before. I was able, because I had several jobs just sort of cobbled together, working the gig economy and living a life as a starving artist to get there. And so basic income enabled me to focus entirely on my business, not have to live in that gig economy anymore. And I was seeing my business grow, and I was seeing that positive that positive consequence from having the time and the money and the freedom to be able to pursue that business. And then obviously like the pilot got canceled. And so then I put my energy and time after the learning of the cancellation of the pilot. I was furious, and I started producing a portrait series where I met and found all the other basic income recipients of the Ontario Basic Income Pilot. I asked them what they were using basic income for, and I asked them to tell their stories. And there were several stories. I aimed to get 50 portraits, and I was actually able to get 70 portraits. And the stories I'm going to highlight today are stories of other people like myself who were using basic income to build businesses, to start up in life and to support other small businesses. So you see like this like very direct positive economic impact. So I'm just gonna do a quick share screen. I just need to pull up my photos here. Okay, sorry, give me a second. I'm not like the most tech savvy, I guess. Okay. So if everybody can see that, yeah. This is Monica. She says, UBI, among many other businesses, has provided me with a chance to get to work from Hamilton to Toronto, look for more work in Toronto, and developing her business. And she's been a really great activist and worker like for basic income here in Hamilton as well. But you see how she's like was able to get more work and develop her business because she had basic income, which gave her that extra time, which is really huge. And then who else do we have? Basic income has allowed me to support charities in Ontario that are special to me. I've been able to support Ontario farmers by purchasing their products. I've been able to eat more healthy with the extra income. I've been able to make some money for my future. You've taken my security and future away. I remember her, she was very angry when I took this picture, just at the cancellation of the pilot. And I chose this picture because it sort of highlights that she's supporting small businesses. She's supporting her local economy. She's eating healthy, and that's supporting direct farmers. And I grew up in rural Ontario surrounded by farmers. So this drove it home to me, is the idea of being able to support something small and local and see that positive impact on an economy of a place. And then also the ability to support charities and things that and nonprofits that she cares about. And I think that's really important. And then, of course, we have Louis and Lana here in their store in Lindsay, Fresh Fuel. I went there. I got some really delicious food there. Basic income helps us further develop our business by easing the financial stress of bills at home and raising 4 young children. And I like they were part of this discussion as well. So yeah, like it's really cool to see that like we have a business now, like a physical building, a business, people that are serving people food. They've won awards for their business and they're doing great. And basic income was that thing that helped them to get that start. So you see how like these positive impacts are made like very tangible. Very tangible positive effects on the economy of a place. And it's like, I don't see it as like a free handout from the government. I see it more as an investment in humanity and society. And I think that that's really important. Yeah, that's what I got for stories for today. But thank you again so much. I'll take any questions or if anybody has any.
Thanks so much, Jesse. We're going to hold some questions till the end, but so I do hope you can stay. We're wrapping up. We're just getting it all in here, and your break here has been really valuable. Not a break, but the idea of bringing again the real live experience of people who were on the pilot to the attention of people is what's going to change, I think, the minds and hearts here, along with the very strong business case that we've heard presented now before you, and now we'll hear some more after. So thank you so much for being a piece of this today. So now I would like to take this opportunity to present Charlotte Robinson, joining us today from minus 120 or something, very cold, Thunder Bay, the Chamber of Commerce in Thunder Bay, providing, the other, another aspect of, we've had therefore every Ontario site represented here today of that Ontario Basic Pilot, which was, of course, Hamilton and Brant, Lindsay, where Lewis was from. And now we have Charlotte Robinson, who's going to share that experience, but also has extensive knowledge of the Ontario case, representing the Ontario Chamber as well. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, it is a chilly day here in Thunder Bay, but I'm happy to be joining you to talk about some of the challenges that we face in our community and how a basic income can address them. You know, Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario has a lot of small rural communities, and we do have some different challenges. We have low population growth. You know, we have other issues that maybe aren't the same as in large growth centers like Hamilton. So I wanted to bring forward some of those issues. Particularly wanted to focus on the development of labor force. We've had challenges with our labor force in not being able to get the skilled workers that we need. And we see basic income as a way to address some of the ongoing skills shortages that we see here in our community and across the province and the country. So as we all know, over the past 20 years, the cost of education has increased significantly. I know when my friends and I went to post-secondary school in the early, our tuition was a few $1,000s a year, but those fees have now risen substantially, and that often presents a barrier to the pursuit of a post-secondary education. Also, we know that employers often demand more education and more experience before hiring. So requiring a bachelor's degree or higher for a starter position that was once available to someone without a college or a university diploma. And so a basic income guarantee can help to build a skilled workforce by actually supporting high school completion and higher education attainment, thereby helping an individual to improve their future career choices and their long-term earning possibilities. We also know from local research here in Thunder Bay that basic income is a way to enable these activities. A recent study by our own Dr. Ravi Gakani at Lakehead University about the experiences of the basic income pilot participants here in Thunder Bay. Some of those recipients pointed specifically to their plans to improve education and employment, to go back to high school, to take an opportunity to go to college or university, or to look at those opportunities to become an entrepreneur. And so basic income really gave them the freedom to think bigger for themselves. And Kofi Annan once said that knowledge is power, information is liberating, and education is the premise of progress in every society and in every family. And I think that basic income really does provide some of the supports for what knowledge can do. It's a solution that is an investment in the value of the individual. It provides a financial pathway to a better life. And instead of working in a low-skilled minimum wage job because maybe circumstance just hasn't permitted a higher education or skills development, a basic income can provide opportunities to pursue the education and experience that could achieve higher skilled and higher paid employment. And as our youth becomes more skilled and experienced, our labor force grows stronger too. And employers can then find the workers they need to grow their businesses, and that grows a stronger economy. So I've actually seen this play out in my own family. A few years ago, my niece moved here to Thunder Bay to attend Confederation College full-time. And to help with her expenses, she was working 16 to 25 hours a week. But as she neared the end of her 2-year diploma, she learned that by continuing her education to get a university degree in that field, she could actually increase her earning potentials by over 50%. But we had a lot of discussions about the cost of tuition and books and housing and food for an additional 3 years of school. And she really struggled with whether she was able to afford to move forward to pursue that better future because of the costs involved. Now, thankfully, she does have a supportive family who was able to help her with expenses, and she has been able to continue to follow her passion and is now working toward a university degree while continuing to hold on to a part-time job. But we know that not every youth has that luxury. They maybe don't have the means within their family to pursue the education that they need to get ahead. And we know a basic income can open doors to education. And I'll point to Benjamin Franklin, who said that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And I agree with that. And I think that for many, without a basic income, they really aren't able to get the returns because they can't make that investment. So I'm a strong advocate for basic income because I see that there are so many positives to the opportunity for not only the individual, for employers in our community, and for the community at large. And I think that basic income will be a vital tool in our recovery moving forward. So thanks for letting me be here to share some of these experiences, and I look forward to the further discussion.
I'm thankful for your message, and also that you mentioned the word recovery again, because that is just so important that we're forward thinking on this, and that is certainly what's in the minds and hearts of people. So thanks for bringing that up. And now I would like to introduce Keanin Loomis, the CEO of Hamilton's Chamber of Commerce, and again, a little bit of an instigator in bringing this event together. So thanks so much for being with us, Keanin.
Oh, thanks, Deirdre. It's so great to be here. And thanks for saying that I instigated, because I feel like a Johnny-come-lately when it comes to this issue, especially with this august group of folks that I share the panel with, and especially Charla, my esteemed colleague. I can say this because this isn't a Chamber Network call, but she's my favorite of all my my Chamber colleagues. And she's, in particular, we've been really great partners on this particular issue, both when it comes to advocacy here provincially and federally as well. And I'm not ashamed, I guess, to be a Johnny-come-lately. I think what we're going to need is a lot of Johnny-come-latelys on this matter. You know, I was informed by Charla. We have a colleague named Ashley Challenor who worked within the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. She was the VP policy, and this was a big passion project of hers as well. And as well, I have to give great credit to Bianca Caramento, who was on my staff until recently when she left to head up the Bay Area Climate Change Council. She was the one that did so much in terms of the on-the-ground advocacy for basic income within our chamber networks. I also have to thank Andrew Yang he was on Joe Rogan, and you know, say what you will about Joe Rogan, but as a guest on that podcast, I'd suggest anybody watch. I'm sure probably you all have, but he really laid out to me all the arguments behind this, and as well, of course, there's broad support across the ideological spectrum, including Hugh Siegel. So all of those sort of those folks, those voices, and all of the stuff that I've learned from all of them has really brought me around on this issue. And I think that, you know, it's in terms of how do we sell this to the business world? How do we sell this to governments? It seems to be pretty easy. We've got a really great basket of arguments here. And we've heard so many of them already. I'm not going to go through them, but they all are absolutely legit. And I think one of the ones that we didn't mention, and from a business perspective, one that's really important to go with is that, you know, we're always talking about how do we shrink government? How do we reduce the bureaucracy? So much of our tax dollars go into government, and I think that this is a really great program. This is the conservative case for basic income, and finally, of course, and some of the guests touched upon this. Isn't this just the right thing to do? You know, you mentioned the report and the activity that we were involved in, called the Flowering of Hope, and you brought me into that, and I really appreciated it. And you know, if anybody were to sit down and, like I did for a day with the folks that you had brought in to share their stories with me and a number of other people, leaders in the community, you know, you can't help but walk away from a day like that thinking, okay, we've got to do something, and we've got to really reform, you know, our government and our public policy apparatus, so it's really working for the people. So it's a matter of political will, and you know, we just have to continue working at it. As I said, I've been trying to work every lever that I have within the Ontario Chamber Network, and it helps to have allies like Charla, and within the Canadian Chamber Network as well. And you know, I'll just share a little story about that. because they just adopted this as part of their policy and advocacy agenda in the fall, and it was Charla and I that, you know, we had to do some politicking. That's what you do when you introduce resolutions to the Canadian Chamber network. You know, you lay out your you know, all the data and facts behind your resolution, and then you have the recommendations to, in this case, it's the recommendations of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce to the federal government. And you need to get buy-in from across the country, particularly Alberta, because they have a veto. You got to get 2/3 majority of all the delegates. And so, you know, we have a veto here in Ontario. Alberta has a veto over us as well. And so it really causes you to reach across the country and find common ground. And we were able to. Colleagues of ours in Medicine Hat in particular were very interested in this issue. And so they were willing to advocate within their own caucus. And when it came to the floor on that day, we just squeaked by. We got 70% support for this policy from the Canadian Chamber Network, which means that it is now a policy on the books of the Canadian Chamber. When they're talking to government, this is one of the items on their agenda, and it's really important. So, you know, it might be a small step, but it's a big one to get the Canadian Chamber Network and likewise, we have the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has it on their agenda as well when they're talking to Queen's Park. So it's, you know, policy making and advocacy. It's a tough slog, but, you know, don't feel like you're shouting in the wind. I think that the dam is breaking, and we were able to crack the door just that little bit to get us into the Chamber Network. And Charla and I, we will use that and for further and greater advocacy going forward. So I thank you for all of the work that you guys do to provide us with the data points, with the anecdotes, and you know, the economic studies and all of that. We need more of that. But it is amazing the group of people that we have here, particularly in Hamilton, arrayed around this issue. And so I will continue to you know, to use all of that as the motivation I need to do whatever I can for this matter. So thanks so much for having me on, Deirdre.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you. And we are just nearing the end, but I can tell you the conversation in the chat room, Brett House is in the house. I'm telling you, he is answering pretty much every question right in there. So I hope that you've been able to follow along. It's been a very active conversation, including things like how do we pay for basic income, and the various models. And is there anything in particular, Brett, that you would like to highlight that you think is an important point to make there that you've been chatting about?
Well, one of the things I always try to emphasize here, and this is where I'm, I guess, a practical realist as an economist, is that, you know, it isn't an either or debate here between a perfect universal basic income and just sticking with the status quo. There are a number of intermediate steps we can take to create a system of support for low-income households, for low-income workers who have been disproportionately hit by the pandemic, by technological change, and by trade, to ensure that they're able to invest in themselves, to plan for the future and participate in Canadian life more effectively, that are built on, you know, some of the ideas inspired by UBI that are gradual steps toward UBI or a more effective social welfare system that maybe get us to our end goal a little later, but, you know, advance things in a way that is helpful for individuals, households, and small business right now. So I guess my big message would be, as always, you know, progress rather than perfection. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The mere fact that we're having this conversation as widely as we are, thanks to the good work of people like former Senator Hugh Segal, Floyd, UBI Works, local activists, people like Jesse, you know, really telling and showing the stories of people like Luis who are sharing their experience, is part of the whole cloud of things that needs to happen to advance a bigger discussion on economic rights in Canada and how we ensure that everyone's Canadian citizenship is really whole. So, don't be discouraged if we don't get there tomorrow. All of this is a step in getting us further along the path to a more equitable society.
Well, thank you very much. Those are fabulous wrap-up comments. And Floyd, also thank you. I see that you've been answering a couple of questions in there too about recent reports and so on. And there are other questions that have been asked, some about social assistance, and there are important works, for example, a report out of MAC that looked at people on the pilot and various indicators of the health and improvements in their lives. All of these kinds of resources that we won't have time to share with you today are available if you join the Hamilton Basic Income Network mailing list. And you can do that by going to Hamilton Basic Income's, the network's website, which Craig, I think, can quickly put that into our chat room for you to pick up the exact address. But there you'll find links to our next event, which will happen in the spring. And we're looking at a variety of topics to carry this conversation on, including the case for basic income and youth, labor. There's already been a case made for artists, but we haven't hosted that conversation locally. So we might be hosting that one come the spring. All of this work is possible because of our partners, including the Roundtable for Poverty Reduction, the Hamilton Community Foundation, the Ontario Basic Income Network, and the Social Planning and Research Council of Hamilton. Today, Craig Pickthorne provided very excellent technological help. And I would just like to end by saying that what you saw today, I think, is something I heard about recently, which is how we need to be able to we can't maybe change the world, but we can change 3 feet in front of us. And by hearing the kinds of stories that Keanin heard and others here have heard and been impacted by, 3 feet in front of them, they're extending that reach. And each of us here now have the opportunity to extend the reach very far by what we've learned today. So I hope you'll take that opportunity, that you'll continue to be a strong advocate for basic income, learning more and more as we go along, how we can make these strong economic changes for our country. So thank you again for joining in today. Take good care and have a great long weekend.